Hey, welcome to today's blog. Today we're going to be talking about toggle switches. Yay! One of my least favourite but necessary devices. One of my personal hates is for having a toggle switch mounted onto a panel where, let's try and get this in focus, where the whole thing sits up and I think just looks ugly. So when we're putting toggle switches into a Mimic panel, we work quite hard to hide all of that. And one of the products we're building today is our switch panel for servo controllers that embodies this. So all of the toggle switches are recessed and the ugly locking ring is hidden. This as a product was never supposed to make it to the mainstream. It was a one-off. They are very time consuming to make. They do take a lot of effort. But we've had ridiculous demand for them, so I'm being forced to make some more. And one of the things I've done with this product is re-engineer it from the inside out so that the unit now is serviceable and slightly easier to manufacture. So for today, we're going to go and make some. Hopefully we'll get them all done. The last thing I need to complete this, if I show you this again, the base, see there's a screw on the side, the base is held up with a little slot of 12mm square hardwood. And I've had that on order for a couple of weeks now and it's not forthcoming, so I'll either be laser cutting some tabs for the inside of this or running to the local hardware store if I really have to finish them. But I've taken them off out of stock and onto back order now, and they're already selling. When it's finished, that'll be screwed in and it'll get its 4 rubber feet and a final sanding. But I hope you'll agree that the action of the switch and the way it's mounted and has an elongated rounded hole for the switch to protrude is far more pleasing to the eye than the usual horrible round hole that you get as it is. I'm sure as we go along I'll show you how we do some of the things we do, because I've got to put a load of these together as well and then ultimately solder them up. Here's the main components of the switch box. I think I don't know what I've got there, 8 or 10, but I plan to make about 30 or 40 over the next couple of days. So this is the plate the switches go to. If you look at the detail, you can see that we've got a perfectly drawn sized hole for the switch shaft to go through and the lock nut. There's a little hole here for the tab washer so it'll go on properly and not rotate. If you look at the numbering, it's back to front, and the reason for that is that's the inside view looking from underneath. So when it's being soldered, you know this goes to 1, 2, 3, so when it's the correct way up, it starts left to right, 1 to 6 and so on. This plate is what goes into the top of the switch panel housing, and immediately above that would be the fascia, and that's part of the housing and it's permanently attached to it. And then this plate can be screwed in and removed if necessary. And then we have the enclosure itself, and it's made up of this wooden origami. How did I design this? There we go. So what I plan to do for now is make a ton of boxes. So what I try to do is there's a clean side when I laser cut and a dirty side where you get the flashbacks and so on. So if I put these out, also the sides I cut handed so that you can have a clean side always to the outside. These are the wrong way around. Yes, they are. Let's put the dirty side up, dirty side up. Nope, wrong way around. So I want this here. Hope you can see, yes, I'm in focus. This here. And then this on the end. And that would constitute a box. And I use PVA for the lot. Let's see if we can get this working. Maybe I should have freed it up beforehand. Are we gunked up? No, it's flowing. It's going to be a slow job. Well, it was really cold last week. We've just got over the, I think where the laser cutter is, it was -4 degrees. And that, it allowed me to cut wood, but it brought a halt to mimic panel fascias because the plastic was so cold. Whoops, it just doesn't work. And I tried one panel a few times and they all went in the bin because the results were not satisfactory. I don't know, maybe I should make this as a kit. Let me know what you think. Let's say leave a comment in the comments, but I don't have comments on. The reason I don't have comments on is, I can be honest with you, I'm not going to read them. I'm too busy getting on with it. So if I make the boxes, I can then leave these and let the glue dry whilst we go soldering away upstairs. Sorry, I'm not my usual buoyant self. Been rather ill last week. I'm almost getting over it. Let's put that there. We can add a touch around here. That side down. And that'll be the phone. That's the first one. Almost a jigsaw puzzle. Let's get everything the right way round. It's quite a varied role here. I could be doing anything from circuit board manufacturing to gluing bits of wood, as I am now, to designing, and there's quite a bit of redesign on this, as I was saying before, and I'll show you that in a bit, but for now I just want to get these all glued up and then we can move on to the more interesting side of it. Construction of this is very similar to our Mimic panel enclosures. You get a double lip for the panel to fit in, and these tend to do these when everything else is done, but I've got a lot of demand at the moment and I want to get it out of the way. So it's a case of find a desk, pull up and get on with it. It was so cold. I was in the garage on Saturday. I was actually stood there shivering. I just walked away and went, nah, not doing this. I think it was -2 inside the garage. And so I've been trying to get a panel made and it just wouldn't. The finish was awful. So in the end I went, oh, I wonder if it's the cold. And yesterday the temperature outside went up to 10 degrees. It was like summer. So I ran back in and reran the job on the same settings and I got a perfect result. In fact, it's in front of me, painted. I had to paint it. Until it's painted, you don't know. You don't know for sure. And it looks great. In fact, in a minute, I'll show you. Flying through these now. No, this isn't going to be a half-hour video of me gluing these. Famous last words. I do like how things go when you get the design right, how it clicks together. Oh, I don't know if it's visible from the camera. Yeah, you can see them. I'm not even gluing them, sticking them together with any, sorry, let's use the right English. I'm not taping them together or bonding them with bands or anything. They're literally snapped together and left to sit. And they should be perfect. Just the tiniest amount to hold this in. Give a little bit of extra rigidity. There we go. If I move my glasses out of the way, and that. With the boxes, as long as the corners are snapped in properly, the box is going to be good. Yeah, this is the panel in question. In fact, the customer who this is for isn't expecting it for another 3 or 4 weeks. But if you look on this, it's one of our regular panels. It's an A4 size, 300 by 200 mil. It's got the holes for the buttons, or for our push buttons, and the LEDs. But because it's an analog layout, we've got an aperture here for his analog controller, and we've got some section switches. And in this case, the customer wanted toggle switches, so he's got the, let's bring this right up. Well, can we get it in focus? Can we get it in focus so I can see it? And you, yeah, so where this toggle switch is, it's toggling the track power to the section. You've got the elongated hole, just like you have with these accessory switches, but the ugly lock nut is hidden. In fact, why don't I show you inside it? There we go. Have a look at this. Let's pop the lid off. And underneath where the switches are, we also custom make the backing to locate the switches. So when the customer has a panel like this, he'll get his backing plate and he'll get the screws it's designed around. And the screws are very satisfying to fit because the backing plate is perfectly machined holes to the outer diameter of the screw, and the fascia is perfectly machined to the inner diameter. So they go together rather well, and I hope you'd agree. I think that looks rather nice. I won't glue this on, I'll just hand it to the customer like that. They'll be collecting it, but I think that's a nice looking panel with a mixture of the analog switching and the digital switching from our control system, which will all come through here. I think the customer will probably have to make a little hole. And the case is a clamshell. Not clamshell, it should ultimately come apart in the centre like this to split the box. Okay, put that out of the way. So as you can see from that panel, it's not much different to what we're doing with the switch boxes. You see it all, mostly. Can you imagine gluing this outside during the cold? It would freeze before I think it would stick. We had some fun over the weekend. We basically had no water. We got a bit smelly, and we discovered the leak yesterday in the neighbour's garage. So what that was doing was dropping the water pressure to ours, and well, that was it. Yes? Yes, please. Ah, 2 minutes. Excellent. Some cup of tea. Maybe I'll get these glued in time. If you think my life revolves around cups of tea, it does. When my daughter makes these, I'll do much larger batches, but I'm juggling so many balls at the moment. And I've got, I think we're just about, or if we haven't already, to run out of servo controllers, the Servo 12s in the shop. I've had circuit boards on order since, well, I thought I'd got the right side of the Chinese New Year to get the blank PCBs made, but I think the first batch they made, for some reason they failed it and it had to be remade, so it never shipped in time, and now it's showing about 40% complete, so I'm expecting by the end of February I'll have more in stock. I think there's something like 1,000 boards coming in, and then when that comes and all the other different boards arrive that are low, it's going to be absolute chaos making circuit boards for the foreseeable future. It all tends to come and go in stops and starts, so I tend to put the Mimic panels, well, I put everything around circuit board manufacture. That's our main business. So as long as I can keep that going, keep stock, we're laughing. We did stock up before Christmas quite heavily, and it's all gone. It's the little things that get you, like you'll make something and then you'll realise, oh, I've got everything I need except a cable. I mean, these require 5 2-metre length cables. They come with a 2-metre lead, and I checked before, I think I've got plenty, but you make 50 of these, that's 250 cables. Suddenly you don't have. Nice problem to have though. Shiny side down, so when we look at it from underneath and screw it in, all goes well. I probably won't touch those for a minimum of an hour. Ah, last one, excellent. 2, 3, 4. The only change I made to the actual box itself was to change the aperture for the leads, so that when the base comes off, the leads can be removed. The earlier version, it goes through the wood, you've got to cut it, and that's not sustainable. But as I say, that was not designed to be a main product, but it's people want it, so I'm going to make it. Maybe they're too cheap and I need to put the price up. That's a thought. It's not the materials, it's the time. So I am seriously thinking about making this as a kit. If you think you'd like it as a kit, drop me an email. If I get enough interest, I'll put it up as a kit of parts. So that'll be 12 switches, toggle switches, all the wood, and a pre-painted fascia. Could even do them unpainted. Use your own colour. Hey, that'd be a thought. But if you cock that up, I wouldn't be looking to supply fascias, so maybe it's better if I supply them all painted. You can have any colour you want, like Henry Ford said, as long as it's black. Yes, that's looking good. Okay, wrong way around, doesn't matter, it's symmetrical. Thought it looked wrong when I was doing it. Corners in, so that's 6 of those, that'll get me going for a bit. Alright, squeeze the glue out of this. So, next part, I quite like this, is fitting the switches to the back plate. Now this is where I did spend a lot of time. Oh, where's all my switches gone? I've obviously put them somewhere safe. Ah, there they are. Found them. So I don't need those. They're done. I do need these. Okay. So we need 12 switches in there. Special tool, a socket. Make life easier. So the way I do this, take the switch, numbers on the right side, feed it in. Then on the back, I put the tab washer. I don't know if you know, let's show you this. See the washer here? See if I can get it to focus. Come on. The washer does have a little tab on the side. Oh, it would help if I... There we go. There's a little tab just here. And that locks it into whatever you're mounting it to stop it spinning. And the way I do these, this goes in from the number side. Then you put the tab washer into the slot we have just below. See, there's a slot below here. Come on, focus. The little oval hole here, and that's for the tab to go in to lock it. Then I'll drop the spring washer and finally the nut. And if I know I've got the tab washer in, then everything else about this I know is right, because it all has to line up perfectly at that point. So give that a nip, not over tighten. There it is fitted. And the way that is now is the terminals are at the top, which means when that's up, it's off. When it's down, it's on. I don't have to think about it when I'm making it. I can just stick them in. Of course, with all the waffling I'm doing, it's going to take me about 3 months. This washer, why haven't I got that in? Go on you go. There we go. And the nut. Sometimes I find jobs like this therapeutic again. Nip it up so it's locked, but there's still a little bit of movement on the spring washer, a little bit of load. Stick that in. I think this piece of wood, this plate, is where I put most of my effort in the design. Hey, we're a quarter of the way. Locating washer first. Nearly forgot that bad boy. Spring washer. Come on. And nut. Cool. What you probably won't appreciate after the edit is I'm going to be doing this for most of today. In terms of work, the way the priorities work are I will scan emails in the morning, looking for anyone asking for help and try and get them a reply as fast as I can. And then I'll get on with the day's production. The one thing that has to be done, of course, are the orders. Try and get them done for, well, they have to be done by 4 o'clock. That's when Royal Mail turn up to collect them, and they ain't going to wait. They are pretty good though. People say, well, why don't you use this company or that? And the bottom line is, for the size of package we use the large letter format, and nobody can touch Royal Mail on price. So I can get, for example, a contract with DPD or someone else for that, but it's more expensive. So unless the customer's willing to pay for it, it ain't going to happen. International orders though, they're all FedEx if they are over £500, and we cover that, and it just cuts through all the noise of borders and stuff and just gets there fast. If I'm making a mimic panel for an international customer, I'll give them the choice, because they're packed manually, so they can have a bespoke packing solution, I suppose. Given that so many of them do go abroad. That panel up there though, this guy, he's local, so he is collecting. What he's not expecting is A, it's finished so quickly, surprise, and B, I've actually built the box for him. And I built the box because I tweaked the design and I needed to finish it and test it. Hi, cup of tea time.
Oh, are you videoing?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, okay. So that's a yes and okay, and would you like a cup of tea all in one?
And cherry cake.
Oh, hang on. Stop everything. Hold the horses. Can you see, guys, what I have to put up with? 2 slices of cherry cake. It should have been 3, surely. It's good stuff, this. Cheers. Num, num, num. I better stop filming while I eat this. And no, you're not going to get cherry cake all over your switches. Though I could say I'm greasing them for you. Well, that cherry cake was nice. Oh, love it. Right, where were we? Toggle switches. Hopefully I've kept it in camera all the time. Tabbed washer. See how hard we work. This is obviously something I should outsource. But where would the fun in that be? This is proper British engineering. Heath Robinson would have been really proud. I enjoy it. But I think when this lockdown fiasco all finishes, I'll be able to get people round again and ramp up the numbers. I've been asked why I don't make one that has a mini panel in it, and instead of having 5 cables running, I could just have a single network cable. Great idea, but I think it's cost prohibitive for me to pre-make it, because by the time you've got your mini panel processor and you're basically a mini panel starter kit in a box, we do the temporary mimic panel and you can do it yourself, albeit in a slightly different format. But if it's something you think would appeal to you, let me know. Let's have my evil thought again. Leave a note in the comments if you can find them. Send me an email, I'll work. I buy the toggle switches direct from the manufacturer. I've just heard the doorbell go. I think that's FedEx picking up parcels. I'll leave my manager, Sheila, to deal with that. Yep, I can hear the door going. There's another one. Yay. And that will go like this. And it will go like this. How good does that look? I think it's pretty smart. Because they won't move when it's screwed down. I like that. I need to make a load more of these as well. I've got some upstairs and I need to churn a load more out downstairs. 3, I want at least 6, don't I? 4, 5, 6. And we'll call that a win for this morning. Don't half go through switches. I was buying them in bags of 10,000, I think, batches. I think there's 100 on a tray. Oh no, so that would be 100 on a tray. Yeah, 50 trays, 5,000. And I've only got a couple of trays left. So I think when our manufacturer of switches wakes up from their annual holidays, we'll be getting some more on order. Another big thing as well is microcontrollers, the CPUs. I do love coffee, but every now and then I'll love a cup of tea. So I'll be ordering from them. We buy direct from the manufacturer, so they can usually let us have them within a week, so that's not a problem. Because when I go back, it'll be, oh, we've got no stock. Actually, they've been very good at Mel. I think what we want is so massively produced. But then again, it's not unheard of for manufacturers to go out of stock of anything. Look at us with servo controllers. I think we're down to 1, maybe 2 now. By the time this goes out, I'm sure there won't be any. Oh no, I found one. Found one this morning lurking on a bench. This guy. All bagged up. I just hadn't taken it to the store at the post room, so great. If you are trying to order online and you're worried about entering your credit card details onto a website, what you need to know is when you're entering your card details, they're not going into our website. You're actually entering them into our card payment provider's website, which is PayPal. It basically puts you onto their website to complete the payment. And that way we avoid a whole load of admin, because we're not ever processing or seeing your card payment details. But every now and then somebody will say, well, can we do it over the phone? And the answer is yes. What I don't want to do is take a manual order, because it always relies on me not to cock it up. So the way that works, or should work, is if you create an order on the website and go all the way through to the PayPal screen, at that point the website will save that order and I can find it after as an abandoned order. And then you can call me up and I can take payment over the phone, find the order you've created and just mark it as paid manually. So essentially you've created the order via the website but paid over the phone. Doesn't always work out though, because sometimes I'm in the wrong building. So we do it by mutual appointment, but it's rare. And I'm not encouraging that behaviour, so don't get any ideas. But it does work. There's always a solution. Yesterday we had, everything comes in stops and starts. Yesterday we had 4 parcels to France, different customers. Whereas the week before it was New Zealand and Australia all in a day. It's funny how it works. Do you know what I've done? I've put them the wrong way round, but it doesn't matter. I'll put them on from the back because I know what I'm doing. Or as I'm demonstrating, I don't. That was a hang up from when they had to be installed into the enclosure and then soldered up, whereas now they don't have to be. Don't tell anyone. If you don't tell them, I won't. These can be over tightened and it ruins them. So just right. They're Goldilocks setting. I've got some panels on the go with analog section switches using toggle switches, but they're not just turning sections on or off, they're also switching between the AB power supply or transformer. So they're using a double pole, double throw switch. Of course, I've got plenty of those which are on, but this customer wanted on off on latching, so they're on order. So I'll probably have his panel made way before the switches arrive. I think this is one of those rare videos where I'm not getting my head in the way. I'm not getting my head in the way. You can't see anything. The time it takes to set up a video varies from just get the camera running. Yeah, I want them all to look ad hoc, to prepping. I was cutting this wood last night, tweaking the design, testing it. There we go, yeah, you can see it here. I don't know if you realise, but I'm actually shooting and uploading video in 4K. So if you've got a monitor, a 4K monitor or a 4K TV, I've looked at them on our telly and they actually do look superb. When I went on holiday a year and a half ago or so, it's my first holiday in nearly 20 years, I bought this camera and I ordered an underwater housing for it so I could take it scuba diving. And it's a Sony camera, it's a Sony AX53 I think, and you couldn't get the housing in Europe or anywhere, so I had to order it from Japan, and it came about 3 days before we were due to jump on a plane. And the other thing as well is, no, it wasn't the housing came, but it didn't fit with the standard battery. So I had to order a special battery that was like 5mm shorter, but oddly enough with a higher capacity. So that arrived just before we went away, and I think I shot 5 hours under the sea. And loads above it, but I think the memory card I had on it was something outrageous. I can't remember now. Well, it's in the camera. But it was good for about 10 or 11 hours of video, which is great because it was just enough. There's another one. Call that the last one. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Need 2 more. Yes, of course. Okay, note to self. Stick them in the right way. There we go. So I shot this video, but I didn't shoot it in 4K, I shot it in 1080p at a higher frame, at 60 frames a second, thinking, yeah, more frames per second is more better. Not the case, but it looks superb. At one point we were diving on an underwater mound, about, I don't know, 20 metres. And it was a known spot for manta rays to come and clean. It was absolutely stunning. These rays were 3.5 metres across their wingspan. So they would dwarf me, and I did have a moment where one appeared out of the blue and it looked like it was just coming for me and came right up to me. Then went over my head. It was beautiful, absolutely beautiful. They took us to a place, because I was diving twice a day off the island. They took us to a place not far off the resort, and it was called the Tuna Factory, the dive site, and I thought, oh, that's fun. I wonder why they call it the Tuna Factory. Well, I found out. It literally was in the sea, right at the end of a tuna factory on land, and I thought, well, what's the point of diving here? Wow, brilliant. What happened is it was a tuna canning factory, and all the carcasses of tuna that they discarded were dumped in the sea. You think, well, that's a dumping ground. No, it was amazing. It was full of sea life anticipating the next dump, and we would literally sat there in 5 or 6 meters depth, and we've got stingrays and all sorts, and eels and sharks all around us just looking for fresh food, and all along the bottom are just stripped carcasses, skeletons of fish, and they pick them clean. It's absolutely fascinating. I used to do a lot of diving, but I don't now, because having lived abroad, I decided that the British climate is more suited to indoor model railways than diving, and anything that needs more than a t-shirt for exposure protection is too cold. When you had to do a refresher, I hadn't dived for a number of years. It's fun though. I learnt to dive. Actually, I learnt twice. I think when I was 15, 16, I learnt with BZAC, British Sub-Aqua Club. And then it was more a test of endurance. If you made it to the end, you could have a go with a cylinder. I remember in the early days, when they were called aqua lungs, my first actual go was in a pool when we lived in Berlin, 1970. So I'd have been 8. She makes a damn fine cup of tea. I was 8 in a pool, actually in the, it was HQ, Berlin Infantry Brigade, BIB. My dad was posted there. So this was an army base right on the side of the Berlin Olympic Stadium, which I went past every day, twice, on the school bus. Because I went to school then at Gatow Airfield, which, if you know anything about the Berlin airlift, well, that's where it all went. So at school at the going past this Olympic Stadium, of course, then you take everything for granted, and don't give it a second thought. But in this army camp, was the Olympic swimming pool, and again we used that like it was no big deal. And that's where I had my first ever dive. And in those days it was the old style scuba gear, so you had an inlet and an exhaust going, you know, from the left and right hand side of your mouth. What am I doing? I want the lock now. And the first stage demand valve was on the back of the cylinder. And I can remember paddling around a shallow pool at the age of 8. 62, 70, yeah, 8. And it was quite a thing. I was very young to be doing it. And I used to go to all the lectures of the BZAC there. And I think, despite their best efforts, they couldn't get rid of me, so they felt like they had to let me have a go. I think I went for a year, I attended every lecture. I even remember the lecturer's name. And because BZAC then was sort of born out of the military, wasn't it? So it was a good home for it. But I loved it. I was fascinated by the science and technology, and wow, you know, pressure builds as you get deeper down. And when we came back to the UK, living in Chester, I rejoined British Sub-Aqua Club. I think it was 15 or, yeah, 15, 16, and did it and got me, I can't remember what they call it now. Would they call it open water? Because that's paddy, isn't it? But I did it with BZAC. And when I think back what happened, it was horrific. I mean, my first ever dive was under ice at the top of the Horseshoe Pass in Llanberis. So if you, knowing what I know now, my first ever dive outside, under ice, in a dry suit, at altitude. And they're like all things that in themselves require some degree of specialist training now. And again, we just went out and swum around with the club. But I think what killed it for me, I was in the River Dee in Chester at the Groves, which is just by the weir, at the bottom of the water there. And I put my arm out and I couldn't see my fingers or my hand. It was that murky, the water, and I just thought, this is rubbish. And I didn't dive. I stopped after that till I went abroad. And I thought, time for another go. So I started again with Paddy. This is not an advert, but I'm a sucker for a course, and I did my open water. And I loved it. And I loved it because the climate was right, the environment was right, and it was on my doorstep, and I had plenty of spare time because at that point I'd stopped working. And I went diving, and I did my open water in 4.5 days. And it was like, right, what's next? Oh, need to do your advanced. Okay, what's that? 5 specialty dives. Okay, we'll give that a go. Did the advanced. And then after a while, I think, okay, what's next? Medic first aid. Okay, let's do that. I might have got the order wrong, I can't remember. So did my medic first aid, which basically meant, yeah, your basic CPR and resus training. It's like, okay, what's next? Rescue diver. Well, that was a fun course actually, but did rescue diver, kept going on. Okay, what's next? And I think their highest non-professional rating is something called Master Scuba Diver, where you demonstrate you understand and have got experience of all sorts of specialties and stuff. So I went and did that. And guess what happened? Okay, what's next? Dive Master. Well, that's fun. That's where you get hit with instructor level theory, and only at that point do you become a member of PADI. So that's their first professional qualification. DM. Quite a good course that, and I did enjoy it, and I love the theory side of it as well. So we did that. At this point I was never planning or intending to do anything with diving other than for fun, pleasure. So I did the DM, and I think by this point the dive school, well, way before, had stopped charging me for dives, so I was basically diving for free. So it was a case of, right, you're a DM, take these people out. I started leading dives, and you guessed it, right, what's next? Instructor. So I did their instructor development course, and then you get all these instructor examiners fly in twice a year on the island, and I got my instructor rating. Still not intending to ever teach anyone. I jumped through all the hoops on that, and I ended up as so it was DM, dive master. I didn't do assistant instructor, I went straight to instructor, which open water scuba instructor, Ozzy. That was fun. And then you go from there, you go up to the next level of instructor, which is MSDT, Master Scuba Diver Trainer. So for me to get my Master Scuba Diver before, a new instructor can't certify you for that. You need somebody who can do the MSDT rating. And then from there I went to, you had to go back to an instructor training course, but this time you're going as an assistant to the course director, the guy that's running the course. And that's so I can become a IDC staff instructor. And that means you are assisting with the instruction or with the training of instructors. And that's as far as I got. I did that, and the classes I ran were all for my mates and their mates, and I used to do it on my own terms, mostly embassy staff, because we were surrounded by embassies on our little Mediterranean island in Cyprus. And I enjoyed it because I did it on my terms, but there's no way I would ever work as an instructor. It was actually very hard work. I mean, when I was doing being a DM, it was not uncommon to go in the sea 5 times a day. And let me tell you, that is exhausting. And it was fun for a season helping out 2 or 3 days a week, but it's absolutely knackering. And I had some fun. I did quite a few rescues for real as well. You know, tourists would come on the boat and do their tourist dive, and that's great. But you can't tell at the check-in point, really, with any certainty, other than looking at certification and experience, who really can and who can't. So when you get, particularly in the afternoon dives, which would always be shallower, you get the less experienced divers. They're all, despite being certified, maybe they haven't dived or they only dive on holiday. You've got to relearn it a bit. And the problem with that is you're out at sea, and sometimes conditions aren't brilliant. If the sea's a bit choppy, you're going to know. And I've pulled a few people back. If you're leading a dive as well, if you're doing, the way it would work is you do the deep dives in the morning and you do the shallow dives in the afternoon to give your body a better chance of recovering from its nitrogen loading. And so we'd scoot off in the morning on a little speedboat to a dive site. Maybe it's 30 meters deep or whatever. And you'd lead the dive, so you'd perfectly plan it and perfectly execute it. And you know, you're going around, you're checking people's air. Some people want to show you, to some it's a secret, and it's fine because they're all certified. And then, you know, 2/3 of the way round, it's got no air, time to go up. So if you're deep, the ideal way to do a deep dive from a boat is you run a prescribed course, come back to the anchor line and follow it up. And the beauty of that is when you're doing your safety stop at 5 meters, you've got something to hold on to. But if someone runs out, you can't make it back. You've got to go up. So you're sitting in the middle of the sea, letting the nitrogen escape from your body. And it's fun. Actually, when I was on holiday, so I was the tourist, they were all the dives were done at sea. Your guide would have a surface marker buoy, and you'd fire it off to let the boat know where you are, and you'd sit there for a few minutes. So much fun. I think the most fun I've had learning or training was couple of things. One was the rescue diver course, because you've got to play the victim to get rescued. And I remember on one course that we had a training line at the bottom of the sea. I think it was about 5 meters, and that's where all the learner divers would hang on while you were showing them stuff, stop them drifting off. Doesn't always work, but on one particular rescue dive, I was the victim this time. I won't mention the guy's name, but it's as clear as anything. And what I did is I had a little hook, so I hooked myself onto the training line. And so I'm simulating a panicked diver. Now, I don't know if you know, but you wear an inflatable vest called a buoyancy control device, and you adjust the amount of air in there to displace a bit more water and make yourself neutrally buoyant in the sea or wherever you're diving. So what I'd done is I'd hooked myself onto the line, simulating I'd got trapped, and then I fully inflated my BCD, my buoyancy device, so that I was basically strung up like a helium balloon in air, trying to reach the surface in a panic, but being restrained. So what this guy did when he found me was he comes along and he goes, aha, gets out his knife and approaches me, and I'm like, oh, this doesn't look good. And he cuts the line. Why? So he cuts the line. Now the line has already been cut and it's joined in the middle with a knot. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let's do one more because we're having fun. So he cuts the line that's joined with a knot, and I then proceed like a Polaris missile down this rope, at which point I hit the knot. So I'm now immediately jerked back, and the knot has gone into the clevis that I was latched onto the rope with, and it's become properly stuck. It's wedged in. So now I'm genuinely stuck on this bloody line. So what does he do? Knife out again, cuts the other end. So great rescue. I got a broken neck and the trainees lost a line, which we had to go and put back after. That was fun. I'll never forget that. So if someone approaches you with a knife, don't let them. When you're doing your dive master training, they give you a scenario that's designed to put you under stress to see how you cope with it, which basically means it comes at you and you don't get any warning. So you're told for this part, you must go in the sea within the next, I don't know, hour, 10 minutes with a buddy, and you must come out wearing everything they've got on except their swimming trunks and exposure protection. And you're not allowed to surface swapping gear. So, and the whole thing is done buddy breathing. I don't know if you know, buddy breathing is where two people share one regulator valve and cylinder. So you're sharing it. So you take a breath, hold it, blow your bubbles so you're not actually constricting or closing your airway, and do all that and basically get changed under the sea. Now, I thought this was really dangerous. Not for the reason you're going to think of though. We couldn't stop laughing when I did it. I was actually with the same guy that tried to kill me on the rope on the rescue diver course. But I said, I tell you what, let's get smart. I'm going to go in wearing all your gear, and you're going to go in wearing all my gear, and then I'll be putting on my stuff, which will be more comfortable and natural than trying to put on something I don't know. And I thought we cracked it. No. Yeah, that was good. That worked. It was the laughing that nearly killed us. We were just, it would be like 2 sucks of the air, pass it over, immediate laughter, no air. And the other guy, well, he's laughing his head off and he's got the air. So, just never ends. I did enjoy that. It was so enjoyable. It was fun, but bloody hell, it was dangerous. I mean, imagine gaggling on a load of water there. I mean, the instructor's with you, or the examiner, yeah, instructor, watching you do it, because your instructor can make you a dive master. But that was fun. But being an instructor is all about regulations, really. What are the rules for this? What are the rules for that? Theory, what happens at this? Can you run a class? Do you know all the answers? And so on. And the other example I'll give you for training, which I thought was hilarious, is when you're on an instructor class, teaching instructors, you get to play the student from hell. And I love being the student from hell. It's just brilliant. So you can, so I go down as a student, and the trainee instructor is trying to educate me. And what I perfected, and this isn't to pass or fail them because they're on training at this point, it's to teach them. So you've got various things going on in the water, and buoyancy control is absolutely critical. And you've got a couple of ways of achieving that. God, this is going back years now. This must be going back over 30 years. And you've obviously got your exposure protection through your wetsuit or whatever. So that's going to force you up because it's full of air. And then you've got your weight belt, which is going to keep you down and counteract that. And if they're perfectly in balance and your buoyancy control device is inflated or not to the correct level to just give it that final tick of adjustment, everything's good. And on this particular day, when I'm student from hell number 3, I managed to misdirect my student. So he's making me do an exercise where I'm taking the regulator out of my mouth and showing that I can do it underwater and not panic and do it in a safe manner. And he's focused on the thing he's trying to teach me. So I'm holding my regulator in the air above my head, and he's looking at that. And while he's not looking at the same time, I'm fiddling, pretending to fiddle for my buoyancy control device, but accidentally confuse it with my weight belt and release it. So no amount of any adjustment when your weight belt comes off, it's going to keep you down. So I can remember with this guy, he's so focused, he's in too tight to me, focused on my right hand maladjusting the buoyancy control device, and just as he backs off and thinks job well done, I've basically got my weight belt in my other hand and I show it to him and let go. Sort of showing him, look what you missed, mate, and shoot up 2 or 3 meters to the surface. And the group goes up and we all have a good chat about it, and he's like, oh, I screwed, because part of the problem is when you're training people to scuba dive, A, it's a dangerous environment, so get it right. B, kind of look after them because you're responsible. And C, do not lose sight of the overall picture. And he focused in too much and lost sight. And there we go. But it was, I couldn't stop laughing. I love being the student from hell. Maybe it's because I was so terrible. Don't get mad, get even. That was great. I was going to go back on holiday diving this winter, but some little bug saw an end to that. Well, not bug, almost form of life. Our virus. Right, I'm going to call the switches a day, and I'm now going to re-site us to the workshop upstairs, where I'm going to solder. What am I going to do? 12, 24, 36, 48, 60, 72, 84 switches. Oh, won't that be exciting? And if I can get that done before 1, don't know what time it is yet. It's probably gone 1 already. And then I can get on with today's post. But you see the amount of work that goes into toggle switches. It's there's a lot to it. It's time consuming and tedious. But I do like to go the extra mile and get it right, because I think the results are worth it. So call this bit a day, and I'll see you in the workshop when I've got it sorted. Yep, that works for me. See you in a bit.